ready to introduce, near and dear to my heart, Dean Gainey. Is an incredible educator, and he's an author. He is human extraordinaire, and boy, can he sing to boot. And Dean is going to be sharing with us today about creating spaces, actually how to climb in the right spaces, right? And then there's like a little play on words there. So Dean, I'm going to let you take it away from here. And you're joining us from Florida. So I want to encourage everyone to continue to, Michael Drezick's joining us from the baseball field. I love it. Dean, I want to encourage anybody else to share in the chat, and we're going to let you take it away.
Hey, thank you so much, Mary Alice. And hey, my good timing there for you as well. My mind is so full right now. I can't even tell you just how much information has been loaded in there. I'm so glad this is being recorded. And what a great segue too, Dr. I, to be the best version of yourself, something you said specifically. And I was like, isn't that the goal? All things considered, to help our students to be the best versions of themselves. And so I'm going to try to stick to this 15 minutes, but you know, I have so much to say. And what if I loved intentionally? What if I strive to be the best I could be? What if I saw the good in others? What if I put others before me? And that's all I wanted to sing of that song. That's a song that I wrote. And I wrote it with the understanding that we all play such an important part in this world we live in. And so we talked about diversity today. We talked about so many things that just really chimed in with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing point. And so here we go, climbing in the right spaces. And I'm just so grateful that I've had the opportunity to learn about spaces as a platform because of the role that it has played in just the understanding of how we help our students, how we coach our students, how we're mindful of our students. And so I created a class on spaces, by the way, a space on spaces. If you happen to want to screenshot that or scan it or whatever, I'll come back to it at the end, but would love to have you all join in. The class code's also on the bottom, so maybe take a screenshot of that before we move on. And it's called Climb Class Virtual Interactions, Climb Virtual Interactions on Spaces. All right, so let's go. When we talk about Climb, right, we have 6 ideas that are embedded in this acronym. And this is something that has, over the years of teaching, has really stood out to me, and it fits very well into everything that we're talking about today. How do we help our students to climb? And we think about, well, we want them to reach whatever their goals are, and we sort of coach them and work them towards being able to achieve that. And so there are 6 words: cultivate, lead, inspire, motivate, build, and empower. Empowerment, even though it's at the end, right? It's not the end all be all. Empowerment is happening constantly. And so that's sort of the impetus for this acronym that I've developed in my teaching. And so we talked about how there's so many different definitions of citizenship, but spaces, right? How about utilize spaces? Certainly we want to help students to make right choices, decisions, be responsible, and sort of engage with others in an effective way. And the part that I really wanted to focus on is the last part.
Yeah.
How do you
want to go?
Okay, how do you take the last part of this, right? How do you continue to use these skills beyond the classroom? That's really where I want to focus, because it's more about what are you going to do now from this point necessarily, instead of just using this inside of the classroom for this particular reason. If you notice that screenshot right there on the right-hand side of the screen was something that I do in my classroom on a daily basis. And so I try to be consistent, right? Because as we are consistent with engaging students in digital spaces, we're able to model and show how you would engage in a digital space in order to be respectful, responsible, and so on. And so a quote of the day, something like really, really simple, but yet really, really impactful. Why? Because you're able to embed these multiple modes of information, the video, the text, the ability for students to be able to watch, listen, interact, post their comments, respond to other students in a digital space. And you as a teacher being able to monitor that and engage too. And I think that it's important for students to see teachers as learners too. I am a forever learner. And so I try to model what that looks like in a digital space and teach them in those teachable moments on spaces how to do that, right? What happens when you disagree with somebody? You know, what happens when you don't necessarily agree with the next person's perspective? Well, that's okay. That's good, right? So talking about the whole yes and philosophy, being able to say, I validate or I affirm your perspective. I like that. However, right? One thing I would add is, or I think this, right? And so it's a great space to be able to say or show students that it's okay to disagree. It's okay to disagree, but let them be able to do that in a space that acknowledges the other for their merit and their value as well. Climb is a battle. Climbing is a battle, not with the elements, right? Not with the law of gravity, but a battle against oneself. And so why did I include that? Because to me, it connects to what Dr. I said, helping students to be the best versions of themselves. So tomorrow, I'm not going to be the same person I am today. I'm going to be better than I was yesterday because I'm engaging in these practices, developing this mindset of how to be civic, how to be social, how to engage with others in a space where I can hear and learn from them, as well as they get a chance to also learn from me.
Hi, I'm Micah, and today I'm here to explain Spaces to you and tell you how much it helped me this year. Spaces is an online platform you can use as an app, or you can log in through a website. It is used for teachers and students. Say teachers can upload assignments to there, explain assignments, contact students, anything like that. But it has helped me out so much this year, whether it's my teacher not having to print out an assignment every 2 seconds. In fact, he can just upload it to the internet onto Spaces so we can automatically see it in less than 5 seconds. Or the fact that I don't have to write out an essay with a pen and paper. I can easily just write one or type one and I can send it to him. Or the fact that whenever we were reading a book, instead of him interrupting us, he easily just uploaded it to Spaces, explaining everything and teaching us everything. In fact, I could still use Spaces next year, but I just wanted to inform you about Spaces. Bye.
So it's always nice to be able to hear from the student perspective, right? Because really this is what it's all about. It's all about those students. And so thinking about Spaces, one thing I love is that they have all of the standards preloaded into Spaces. And so thinking about, well, how do you want to guide or facilitate learning in this environment, in this space? And I have a screenshot here of is these standards, right? Which includes the digital citizenship component. And one of the things I have been in conversation with the sort of leaders of Spaces was being able to sort of maybe tag in your own standards at some point in time. But I love how it enables you to go in and you can visually represent these activities, the posts, the things that you're having the students engage in, and you're able to say or identify how this relates to digital citizenship. What's the end result? What's the goal of this activity or the goal of this experience? And I think that's important for visual representation. And I think it's also empowering for students to know what they're learning and even why it's important for them to be able to learn. So thinking about being able to sort of embed digital citizenship, well, I think it's important to do that daily, right? And so I'm always thinking about ways to, well, how can I connect this to a good digital habit? How can I integrate this particular activity or this particular thing that I want my students to be able to grasp and connect that to digital citizenship? Being able to acknowledge, well, what is good? What is bad? How would you respond to this? What would be something that you would say that's constructive? You know, acknowledging what has been watched or seen or actualized, but then taking it a step further and saying, well, maybe I would do this instead. Again, those creative, critical thinking mindsets embedded in there. And then just thinking about how, you know, these benchmarks can vary by the class or by content. I think that came up earlier in our day today. Really, you think about what you're doing and it may not look the same in every classroom, it may not look the same in every lesson, but there are definitely ways to embed digital citizenship throughout what you're doing. Looking at the time, okay, it's going really quickly. So just really quickly, cultivating the ground, very important to have a foundation, being able to understand that students are what matters. And so those relationships, and then being able to connect what you're doing to what we know about our students, right? They have skill sets, they have that things that they know and excel in. And so being able to take those items and connect that to what we're doing in the classroom, I think makes the learning more relevant, makes the learning mean more to them. And you know, as a gardener, I just believe that without that foundation, nothing you do in that garden is going to develop and flourish. All right, so greatness is the amount of time you were able to invest in cultivating your ground. Again, powerful because that's probably the most important part, right? If we're thinking about a house without a foundation will not last very long, okay? Won't. All right, lead, show, and model. One thing to take away from this is I adopted a philosophy of technology, this digital space, and it's a necessary component and can be used for consumption, seeking, creating, and sharing, but it does not drive the learning experience necessarily in the sense of we use technology to support the learning, but learning is primary, right? Learning is primary, technology helps us to get to that end, right? I make it a point to learn with my students, learn from my students. I think there's power in seeing yourself as a learner. Even though I'm a teacher, I'm always learning. And I want them to know that I don't have a problem with learning with them because it empowers them to be leaders. It empowers them to take on that mindset of, yeah, I can teach this, or I know this, well, I can show you this because they're developing their leadership abilities. So one thing, and I know Mike is on the Zoom today. I think it was a couple of years ago, we were able to do a student ed camp, which we have gone to several teacher ed camps. And so we were able to kind of do that in a live space where we were interacting with a class in the Lakeshore School District, and we're able to create those opportunities for takeaways and reflection. And so being able to do something like that in spaces where Spaces is a medium where the students can go and reflect after something like that, accomplish so many things, right? We're learning from students because students are taking the lead during those student ed camps. We're learning with students because maybe they have abilities and skill sets that we don't necessarily have. I definitely have learned from them on multiple occasions. And then having that reflective piece in there, because reflecting on learning is a form of learning as well. All right, so if you let them lead, they will surpass your expectations. That's what I've come to know. They won't just meet them, they'll go beyond that. And then that's where the learning really starts to take off. All right, so we have individual spaces, collaborative spaces, and individual, collaborative, and posts, which is a class space within spaces. And the screenshot on the right is in an individual space post. And so the student was able to reflect on their learning in my ELA class this year and really talk about how that has been a positive for them. And they were really able to express themselves in a space that only I was able to see, because again, we want to be able to have those different mediums of learning. So the individual space is one medium within spaces, the class space, as well as the group space where you are able to have students collaborate. All right, so motivate is the M, challenging the average. I just wrote a blog post about this recently, and I believe it's important to empower students to don't just meet the expectations. What can we do? Go above and beyond. And I'm trying to model that as much as I possibly can, empowering them to go the distance. Go with where you want to go. Go where you want to go. Do what you want to do. Expand your horizons. Broaden your mind. And so it's not just about this, but this is sort of the impetus for continual learning experiences. I tend to think that the highest form of learning is creation. And so I always try to embed something like that inside of the lessons that I teach. And then I also believe that motivation is 75%. If I can get in their heads, if I can challenge them to really understand what it means to be social, what it means to be civic, what it means to be responsible, what it means to be respectful, then I believe that everything else is a sort of domino effect. All right, build. Spaces helps us to build our classroom environment, being able to build capacity, understanding, vocabulary even. I teach ELA and I love words. Building character, how do we do that? Martin Luther King talked about how important character was, not just learning or intellect, but also that character piece. And I think that character works really, really well in this space because you're able to articulate how you feel about something, and you're helping students and engaging them in a way for them to understand how to do that beyond your classroom. Building the house, what do you desire to achieve at the end all be all of this? And so being able to have those conversations with students, I believe that once they understand why the technology is there, they can build anything. Okay, and so I kind of talked about that already. Martin Luther King's amazing words, intelligence plus character, that's our goal. All right, so thinking of some questions to sort of think about. When we empower students, we're not just talking about being content consumers, but taking them from content consumption to content seeking, right? Don't just believe what I say. Search it out. Try to see if you can find out proof. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I missed. And so I challenge them to validate even some of the things that I say. Let's look that up. Let's see if we can find something that confirms that, or maybe even disputes that, and let's have a conversation about it. And then taking that from seeking knowledge to creating. How can we take what we've consumed and what we've sought out, put that together and maybe create something new, create new knowledge. And then finally, being able to share. And so that's really the ultimate goal is, why do we have this knowledge? We want to be able to share it out. And Spaces allows them to do that in multiple ways, multimodal experiences. How can technology empower our students to be themselves? Spaces will allow them to be themselves, and they get to choose how they represent their learning. Excuse me. How can we model and encourage students to be risk takers? Some students don't like to post videos, but there's an audio feature in Spaces. And so maybe they choose the audio feature so that they can share that way. All right, I know I'm running out of time. I'm going to skip that slide. And so empowering students, creating that classroom community, consider the way we learn as teachers. I think it's important to ask the right questions and offer those choices for students as well. All right, and then this is just a slide where I've created sort of these app smash moments for students to kind of create using these different virtual platforms, and then embedding those in Spaces. But thinking about Spaces as a standalone, it definitely empowers our students to engage in digital citizenship, being able to teach them with those moments of learning that I think are authentic, inspiring, and go well beyond whatever the class or year that you are teaching. And so I'm going to say that brings me to the end, and I know that I stopped. Let's see, I went really, really quickly, but I was trying to be mindful of time. So I'll pass it back to you, Mary Alice. Thank you, everybody.
You know what? This was really fantastic because we want to give a shout out to Spaces. I know Melody has been in the chat. They've been a fantastic partner. I'm so glad that you got to showcase it, that you had a student, actually, we got to model that voice. And perhaps, because this is our kickoff, this is something that as we look towards like, what is this going to look like in action next year? You know, Spaces could be a part of your classroom and they can climb with you. They could, you know, connect with your students in really meaningful ways, Dean. So I can't thank you enough.